Wonder Woman 1984 drops 92% in China. It's just been released in the United States. In the United States, it released at 16.7 million, and it did 100 million on the first movie. So it's down a little bit. It's down kind of a lot. But is it a failure or is it successful? Well, I've seen it. I have issues with the film from having seen it. But they made a third one now. This is nuts. It's a new world with streaming where they're going to do 80 to 90% less in theaters, but they're going to say, you know what, that's successful. Let's do a sequel immediately. Let's get into this first article. Before we do, subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications if you want to support my work. I appreciate you doing that. The Chinese continue to avoid Wonder Woman 1984 as if it's the plague, as the flick has dropped a whopping 92% in its second week in China. This is coming, of course, from Cosmic Book News. Following a much less opening than estimated, Wonder Woman 1984 is down 92% in its second weekend, only making 1.55 million in China. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a major drop. So I had done a video talking about how the reception was poor in China to begin with last week. But now, and I had said, you know, the problem when something launches small is the momentum on the project is not going to be good. So the momentum on this is horrible. People are not saying good things about it in China. They had a lot of theaters that had it in China. They had 900 screens for IMAX in China. IMAX is very big in China. But they're not going to anymore because people aren't going to see it. It's definitely the kind of movie that you don't feel like you need to see twice. That's a big problem. That's where it's going to kill their box office. The numbers come from a Twitter user who reports on the Chinese box office, which is the second largest box office in the world. China is a very big film market. Wonder Woman 84 is making 1.55 million on its second weekend, down 92% from its $18.5 million opening, which was not down 92%. That was about half of what it did in the past on the prior movie. Whatever the reasons behind this, Warner Brothers is getting hurt, and their upcoming titles in 2021 are under huge pressure, tweeted this source from China. What is particularly alarming is that Chinese theaters are back to normal, so the coronavirus isn't a factor. And that's a big consideration. So China's movie theaters are basically doing what they were doing before the pandemic. Now they're open, they're doing business, but not for Wonder Woman. The first Wonder Woman also performed much better in China, as we were just talking about, finishing with a $90 million box office. But Wonder Woman 1984 will probably finish with half that, if that much. In fact, they'd be lucky to get 25, maybe 27 million out of China. So it's doing less than a third, it looks like, from what it did from the first film. Regarding the U.S. box office, obviously it's hard to determine if it's a success. But Wonder Woman 1984 opened to better numbers than Christopher Nolan's Tenet. 16.7 million for her versus 9.3 million for Tenet. However, Tenet looks like it's going to crush Wonder Woman 84 in terms of the foreign box office, as Tenet has been more successful overseas than stateside, with 66.9 million in China and over 362 million worldwide. Tenet was not a good film. I saw Tenet as well. If you had asked me which of these two films do you like less, there was one good scene in Wonder Woman. There absolutely was. And there were some good fight scenes in Tenet, and Tenet had some beautiful European backdrops and stuff, so some beautiful cinematography. I don't know. They were both letdowns, and they were not well made. Wonder Woman 1984 also saw its Rotten Tomatoes score plummet from 89% to 65%, and its audience score has dropped a bit to 73%. So we see critics and fans are in agreement. Another thing to know about Rotten Tomatoes is they have an exec over there who controls a lot of the business, who was a former Disney person. And when Captain Marvel came around, they got a huge pass on negative reviews. They basically, Rotten Tomatoes did Disney a huge favor, blocking negative reviews of Captain Marvel. They also weren't allowing people to leave negative reviews. It was ridiculous what they did to cheat for Captain Marvel. No one at Warner Brothers is that tight with Rotten Tomatoes, so you get a little bit more of like some realistic feedback. But I would say Wonder Woman, while it was 84, was a weak movie, it was definitely better than Captain Marvel. Regarding the announcement that Wonder Woman 3 is happening with Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot returning, and it's supposedly now fast-tracked, Wonder Woman 3 has no release date and could be years away, possibly 2024 at the earliest, as Jenkins and Gadot are tied up with Cleopatra, because the director of Wonder Woman 1 and 2 and Gal Gadot are now like a little team, and they go from project to project together. So they're doing Cleopatra together at Paramount and Star Wars Rogue Squadron at Disney. Gal Gadot's not in the Disney film, but Patty Jenkins is doing that. But they have another project they're doing together where Gal Gadot is a James Bond type character with Patty Jenkins directing. So they're going to be very busy. They're not doing a Wonder Woman 3 immediately. The announcement is finally like Warner Brothers has caught on to what Disney does with manipulating public relations a little bit. And they've made this announcement. It doesn't cost them anything to make this announcement. So they may as well just say, yeah, we're really excited about the success. We're making a Wonder Woman 3. When is it ever going to get done? God only knows. Because they've got 3 projects ahead of that. It seems obvious Warner Brothers' announcement Wonder Woman 3 is an attempt to combat all the negativity surrounding Wonder Woman 1984. Yes, as we were just saying. And while they attempted to spin things to the positive, they didn't release updated subscriber numbers for HBO Max. Certainly, if the number of subscribers skyrocketed due to Wonder Woman 1984, they would have announced it. They certainly would have. And we're going to get into this other article with CNBC, where the business press is basically saying that Wonder Woman 2 was successful, but they don't, they're saying it was successful, but they can't explain why. This is again coming from CNBC. Streaming got its first big test against theatrical releases this weekend, and Wonder Woman delivered on both. That's what Steve Kovacs says from CNBC. Let's see what he has to say. This weekend provided the first real test of how blockbuster movies perform on streaming services when they've released in movie theaters at the same time. AT&T's Warner Media premiered Wonder Woman 1984 on Christmas Day, the first movie in its experiment to release its films simultaneously in theaters and on HBO Max, which should be renamed to HBO Plus. The result, Wonder Woman 1984 set a pandemic theatrical release record. Listen to this, a pandemic theatrical release record of 16.7 million in box office sales in the US and Canada. They're including Canada there. Warner Media didn't provide precise numbers for streaming, saying only that nearly half of its HBO Max retail subscribers streamed the movie on Christmas Day. That makes it difficult to determine exactly how many people watched Wonder Woman 1984 at home, since HBO Max's retail subscribers only account for a small fraction of people who subscribe to the service directly instead of through their cable provider. Well, they may not even have that information. Many cable providers will give you access to HBO Max if you already have a regular HBO subscription. So, which people don't even know. That's, unfortunately, they're not communicating very well. So, was Warner Media's experiment successful? That's tough to say definitively. Well, hold on a second. So, this article is supposed to be saying that Wonder Woman delivered on its streaming and its theatrical release. Delivered. Which means, what? That they actually released it? Because, the author of the article can't even say if it's definitively a success. It's a sample size of one movie, and we're forced to work with limited data from the company. But at the very least, we have some good evidence there's plenty of pent-up demand for popcorn flicks. Yeah, you have to consider how many other big movies were released at the same time. Usually you have a lot of big movies coming out. Disney doesn't seem to be releasing all that many movies to theaters these days. So if this had gone up against any competition, would half of the people even gone to see it? When the company made its bold announcement earlier this month, directors and producers in the industry immediately pushed back. Patty Jenkins, who directed both Wonder Woman movies, implied in an interview with the New York Times that she wouldn't direct a third installment without a guarantee that it will launch in theaters. She said that directly. Jenkins apparently got what she wanted, and Warner Media announced Sunday that she'll write and direct. Oh my God, she's going to write it? Not a good idea. Write and direct the third film of the series. By keeping the streaming numbers fuzzy, or basically lying about them or not reporting them, Warner Media was able to simultaneously tout the power of HBO Max while bragging that it had the most successful theatrical release of the pandemic. Another consideration is Tenet was released a few months ago. So what percentage of theaters were open? The best estimates that I see say that about 40% of theaters in North America were open for business. So how many were open when Tenet was released? It was probably like 20%. So you have to compare those percentages. That's to not compare it. Millions more likely watched Wonder Woman 1984 at home rather than in theaters. This is the other problem with streaming. So a lot of people went to go see Joker in theaters and they loved it. And then they went to go see it again and again and again and again. If you have the same movie on streaming that you have in a theater, yes, you might see it on streaming and say, you know what, I want to go see this in a theater. But it's very unlikely. Enough is enough. You can watch a movie at an infinite number of times if you stream it. So even if you see it once in a theater and you love it, you're going to watch it again at home on streaming. You're not going to go to the movie theater multiple times. So not that anyone would do that with Wonder Woman 1984 anyway. The movie's not good enough, but even so, they're giving all that up now. The last retail subscriber count that we have for HBO Max is 3.6 million as of October. That is not a big number. In total, HBO Max has 12.6 million subscribers as of early December. So even though Warner Media said only half of those retail subscribers watched on Christmas Day, there are millions more households who likely stream the movie on top of that. Well, who knows? Who knows what the level of interest is? You just don't have the numbers. Rich Greenfield, a media analyst at Lightshed, said on Twitter that Wonder Woman 1984 was likely seen by more people in the U.S. than the first movie, which was released in theaters in 2017. That's assuming the average household has multiple people watching together. But the idea is not, when you're producing, $200 million movies, the idea is not that a lot of people see it. The idea is that a lot of people see it and pay to see it. So if you had 10 people in a household watch a movie on a streaming service that they get paid, once a month for, versus those 10 people buying movie tickets, it's a much smaller number, whatever you're getting from the streaming. There's pent-up demand to get to the theater. Okay. Even in the middle of the pandemic, the Wonder Woman 1984 theatrical release proved there was still a hunger for people to return to theaters to see a major superhero movie. That should delight theater chains like AMC as they prepare for the post-pandemic schedule later in 2021. The sales figures Warner Media released over the weekend paled in comparison to what they would have been in normal times, but still prove that people will show up where and when it's safe to do so. Not really. But what's going to happen now is, and this is what you're going to see, is these big movies are still desirable. So they're going to still make these big movies. They need the big movies to promote their brands. If no one knows who Wonder Woman is and there aren't movies to promote her, it won't sell merchandise. It won't keep people invested in the DC Comics universe. So they kind of need to keep releasing these big movies, even though they're not necessarily going to make money doing it. This movie can't possibly make money. They spent $200 million making the thing. They spent more money marketing the thing. They have to finance it. So, they spent $200 million. They sat on it for 6 months. That's extra interest payments they have to pay on the money to dedicate to the project. But they also paid out Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot as if the movie made $1 billion box office, for them to go along with and not complain publicly about the releasing to HBO Max at the same time as movie theaters, because they were Patty Jenkins was pissed off about that. So they had to pay them off, basically. So they can't possibly make money on Wonder Woman. There's no real reason to say we're going to rush into doing Wonder Woman 3 because the movie was so fantastic and well received. It wasn't fantastic. It wasn't well received, but they need to keep their brand going. And it's much more than just Wonder Woman. It relates to the whole DC Comics universe film brand. This is why Marvel keeps delaying Black Widow. Black Widow could have come out and probably done equal or better numbers to Wonder Woman. But the problem is they don't want a box office like this where 92% of it is getting destroyed in China. They don't want that. They don't want to destroy the entire Marvel Comics brand. The Disney people are very, very sharp. And the DC Warner Media people are just starting to figure out how to play the publicity game. They're going to need to play it a lot better than this too, and coordinate closer with the people that they're working with. I've never seen something where, you know, the movie clearly doesn't do well. It clearly has a lot of story and editing problems, and immediately they are greenlighting Wonder Woman 3. They're immediately greenlighting a sequel. Well, we'll check it out. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Did you see this movie and like it? Do you think that Wonder Woman deserves a sequel and that it should be greenlit immediately, or that maybe Patty Jenkins should actually take her time, work with someone else as a writer, and have a lot of great scenes and a well-executed movie where things happen for a reason, you know? Would be kind of great. All right. Also, if you want to support my work, check out The Mermaids on Indiegogo. It's at epicmermaids.com. The Mermaids is my graphic novel. It's an epic mermaid fantasy. It's like Game of Thrones with mermaids. It's full color. It's 48 pages. It's completely done. It's scheduled to ship now in April of 2021. And all the art's done, all the story's done. We're just finishing some of the additional world building pages that we're going to add to the book. It's going to be very cool. You're going to see how enormous the world of the mermaids really is. And we also have this 100-page making of book, and you get to see all the full script and the rough layouts of the book, plus more than 20 of these extra character designs that are just amazing by our artists, and so much more about how the world came together and what it's all about. It's really an amazing fantasy world, and it took years to develop. Definitely check it out. All right, I'll see you again soon with another video, and if I don't see you, I will miss you.